I think Rick and Morty is trying to trick us. Rick and Morty. They're psyching us out, just wait. The latest episode, JuRicksic Mort, was mostly a pretty classic feeling Rick and Morty Sci-Fi affair, but intertwined with this otherwise very episodic story were important canonical moments and meta commentary. But based on how thick they're laying down these ideas, I feel like it might be a concerted mislead. And I think this is further evidenced by Rick and Morty taking a 6-week hiatus before the final 4 episodes of the season air, or maybe it is what it is and we're just gonna get classic Rick and Morty romps with little to no serialization. Who knows? But I think they're gearing up for a big end of the season regardless. So let's dive into this episode, and I guess I'll talk a bit about last week's and what I expect to come after the hiatus. Alright, let's do it. So I do want to apologize to anyone who was waiting for my breakdown of episode 5 last week. I actually did find the episode pretty funny. I just didn't feel like I had all that much I wanted to say about it. The only video idea I had was all about the show's weird fixation on incest, and I mean, who the heck would want to watch that? Oh. Huh. I guess Mark did it? Damn it. Anyways, the thing I really enjoyed about last week's episode was just the building out of Rick and Jerry's growing friendship. It was sweet, I like that. Though last week Jerry did mention Sleepy Gary, which is the first mention of Sleepy Gary since Total Recall. So I think that this unfortunately means that my Jerry Baree implication theory I talked about in the first video I did about this season probably goes out the window entirely. But that's okay. We just like to speculate, it's fun. Also, did anyone else think the fortune cookie worm twist felt a bit like the Slurm Queen from Futurama's Fry in the Slurm Factory? Is that just me? Alright, let's jump into this week's episode. Pretty much right off the bat, this episode kind of pokes fun at the fact that they set up all of these big continuity heavy concepts in the season 5 finale and the season 6 premiere and have barely done anything with them.
And in Weird Things in Space news, that mysterious rift is still there. Not gone yet. You remember that, don't you? It's probably important.
And this episode technically does deal directly with this lingering thread, but pointedly, it's in an incredibly unsatisfying way, which I did find pretty funny. They also immediately call out the fact that portal tech still doesn't work, another thing that is solved over the course of this episode, but again, not in a way that particularly ties to the actual plot.
Dinosaurs are back!
I gotta say, this episode probably made me laugh more than any others this season. I just really enjoyed the plot comedically. The idea that these dinosaurs have returned to Earth, pretty angry that we fucking ruined the Earth. It's great. And my queen Lisa Kudrow playing a T-Rex, I mean, how can you do better than that? Also, do yourself a favor, go watch her show The Comeback on HBO. Incredible television. So yeah, they do some really funny stuff that comments on the state of Rick and Morty, even just acknowledging that Morty is now going to school more often without the consistent portal adventures. I love the way Goldenfold and the class react to Morty being there again.
Morty Protocol, children!
I really wish they would have delved into this idea a little deeper, but I think the most interesting part of the plot to chew on more philosophically was the result of the dinosaurs' return. They basically take over running the Earth and create a utopia for humanity. They start up their own dino government to lead the planet, and all of the humans' needs are suddenly just met. All of their responsibilities are gone. But this sort of begs the question, where does your motivation come from when not fueled by fears and anxieties and responsibilities, especially after operating in that kind of society for an entire lifetime? How do you adjust? Do those fears that stem from the uncertain and volatile nature of our societies actually help fuel and motivate us?
I do think it's kind of funny that you're all basically Jerry now.
This right here was probably my biggest laugh of the episode. I just love the way this shot is framed.
How do you do it?
And as it turns out, Jerry has written an entire book about how he survives in this state. Never trying, never fails, which pretty much describes Jerry to a T, and also reminds me of this all-time great Simpsons quote.
Kids, you tried your best, and you failed miserably. The lesson is, never try.
Jerry is like if this Simpsons clip was an entire character. I think another thing I loved about this episode and how season 6 has approached Rick in general is that he has once again met characters that are on or above his level. I think one of the things that made seasons 4 and 5 feel a bit stale is how overplayed Rick the God became. And on top of that, it's sort of unsatisfying narratively if Rick can literally just solve any situation without a problem. He's still incredibly smart and capable, but presenting more characters who sort of outclass or frustrate him because they too are Rick-like, it's a great dynamic. And I really love the way the dinosaurs patronize Rick too. That's really funny stuff.
What the hell is this?
A portal pistol. The gateways are see-through, not a green swirl, so now you can see where you're going.
Seeing Rick so frustrated that he isn't the top dog, it's just very funny to me. He's basically throwing a tantrum here. It's a fun side of his personality that we don't see quite enough, and something I wanted to see more of after the season 5 finale. I really loved the twist of the episode, the revelation that anywhere these dinosaurs go is hit with an apocalyptic meteor strike, and that meteor strike is an entire species that evolved opposite dinos, a dumb screaming rock that just exists to destroy. I mean, look at this thing, what a great design. To me, this entire plot feels like something out of the first few seasons. And like I said, I think this is probably the funniest episode of the season. I have a feeling people are going to be annoyed with it because of all the ways it's teasing the audience about the show's canonical aspects. The biggest thing being that at the end of the episode, the dinos unceremoniously closed the rift from the season 5 finale / season 6 premiere.
It was all canonical and shit. We could have milked that thing for a whole season. Or like a 3-episode arc at least.
On top of that, at the end of the episode, Rick fixes portal travel and they just heavily imply that things are going to go right back to normal.
All right. Good old-fashioned portal fun. Yep, like this. It's gonna be classic episodes, Morty.
So honestly, this was a surprising ending for me. I'm used to the writers sort of poking fun at audience expectations in the show. The story train is a perfect example of this, but this almost feels like they're sort of beating us over the head with it, which is why I think this might be a bit of a misdirect. Before the season started, Roiland specifically described this season of Rick and Morty as canonical, and I know people seem to think that they like to troll us about this stuff, but the word choice from Roiland just felt very intentional to me. Looking at this season, can we say it's been canonical so far? I guess it depends on how you approach that term. The show has been very deliberate with its character arcs and the relationship dynamics. There's been a lot of major evolution for pretty much every member of the Smith family. So on that level, the show maybe could be seen as canonical this year. It also continues to shift the status quo in smaller ways, like having Space Beth around so much more often, incorporating her into stories earlier on, and then just kind of making a point to show her in at least one scene for most other episodes. But on the other hand, as far as ongoing stories and bigger serialized elements go, we really have only got the premiere, which dealt with all of it heavily, including the huge Rick Prime reveals and cliffhanger, and then this episode, which was so unceremonious in how it dealt with all of the serialized elements, it just sort of tacked them on to completely unrelated plots. I just have a feeling that when Roiland called the season more canonical, he didn't just mean what we've seen so far. And it's interesting that they've chosen episode 6 as the split point for a 6-week hiatus. Looking back at season 5, the last 3 episodes were massively serialized and canonical, as was the premiere of season 6, giving us 4 episodes straight that were heavily rooted in the show's ongoing stories and lore. We got the Rick and Bird Person backstory episode, the 2-part finale that wrapped up the Evil Morty storyline for now, and then of course the aftermath of that ordeal in the premiere this year. So I would be really shocked if we didn't see something similar out of the last 4 episodes of this season. I think we can and should fully expect some heavy hitters in the canonical and story-driven aspects of the series, especially with how much Roiland has hyped up season 6, which to me, I think was warranted. This season has just been a lot stronger than the previous 2. Maybe not as good as seasons 1 through 3, at least for me, but a really solid step in the right direction. And I mean, even Rick's complaints about the Rift arc being tied up without much focus could hint at where the writers' heads are at.
Or like a 3-episode arc at least.
Who knows, maybe this was just a subtle hint that we might be getting a little mini arc in the back end of the season. I don't think that's particularly likely, but I would be shocked if the season didn't end with a bigger canonical finale. That just tends to be the way they do things. Only seasons 1 and 3 have outlier finales that don't really tie to anything bigger. It feels like they've kind of settled on delivering something story-centric for finales from here on out. But the question is, will they set up some new conflicts and ongoing ideas now that we've got new areas of the multiverse to play around in, or will they just continue to tie this to the Rick Prime mystery? Based on how seldom they covered Evil Morty and how specific and intentional they were with it, I would be surprised if Rick Prime had a major role at the end of the season, but who knows, this could be a new era of the show. I know they were already writing season 7 before season 5 was even finished, so they can just plan these things out differently now. But I really feel like the whole, everything is going back to normal now, we fixed everything, cannot be that simple. I don't really see the point in even establishing these obstacles like the rift and the portals being busted if they didn't want to shake things up. So while Rick is ranting about how everything will be back to normal,
Adventures, Morty, social commentary, crude characters, here we go, Rick and Morty time!
I just don't think that's what we're gonna get. But I could be wrong. Maybe this is all wishful thinking. There's one thing I do know though, and that is that I would like an entire spin-off of skateboarding dinosaurs. Or just like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater mod that can let me play as Lisa Kudrow's T-Rex. Alright, that's all I got this week. Honestly, this is kind of wild to say because I did like this episode, but I was more inspired by this week's Simpsons episode than this Rick and Morty. But to be fair, that was an insane episode of The Simpsons. I think I'm actually going to crank out a video about that too, probably coming out a day after this one, so stay tuned. As usual, thanks for tuning in. We won't have more Rick and Morty to cover until November 20th. Maybe I'll do some speculation between now and then, but that's the next time we'll have an episode to cover. And that also means that the finale will be in December. So stay tuned for all that. Peace.
Johnny!